will, hold on a second. Will be sharing her story with us here in just a few moments. Again, I'm Marcie Keithley, your host for the evening, along with Jennifer Falsing and Beth Story in the Zoom room. We do have several board members with us this evening. Again, David Bowe, we appreciate your service. I think Barbara usually joins us, Barbara Robertson. I don't know if she's here tonight, but if you are, Barbara, make sure you, when you come in, raise your hand. I don't see Barbara on yet tonight, but we appreciate all of you being here this evening. Jennifer, do you have some housekeeping items we can go ahead and clear up first? Again, a little bit about us. I think most of the people that are with us this evening know who we are, but again, we are the National Association of Adoptees and Parents, also known as NAAP. Okay, and then our evening disclosure. Again, please remain muted, raise your hand on the screen to be recognized, post questions and comments in the chat at any time. We'll be watching that as well. This is a public meeting with no guarantee that information or identity is confidential. Portions of this event are recorded and shared on our YouTube channel. I believe we're recording now. Again, if you're experiencing a serious mental health event or suicidal thought, please contact a licensed professional, or you can call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and welcome tonight's spotlight guest, Diane Bay. Welcome, Diane. How are you this evening?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good, good. Well, we're glad to have you. Just a little bit about Diane. We're going to find out, she's got a unique story that she's going to be sharing with us as an adoptee, and tell us what it's like to, we all know about search and reunion and how that's an emotional journey. Sometimes it can be a complicated one. And what happens when you find out that you're related to somebody who's famous? So Diane's going to share a little bit about that and her relationship with her birth mom. Finding Karen Black, Roots Become Wings, takes the reader on an emotional journey from childhood longing to a dream fulfilled, and from the first moments of a joyful reunion through a year of discovery, loss, and renewal. This is a remarkable journey story, a testament to the power of the mother and the child bond. So we'd like to go ahead again and welcome Diane this evening.
Well, thanks, Marcie. Hi, everybody. Really glad to be here. So I guess I'll start like this. You guys can all probably relate to this statement that until I found my birth families, being adopted was a shroud that hid my identity. And my adoption was one of the closed ones in the baby scoop era, from a private agency. And of course, they legally withheld my history. And my adoptive parents, or me, we never knew anything about my birth mother. She didn't know anything about me either. And I grew up, like probably a lot of you, completely severed from my roots. But on top of that, I also felt ill at ease with my adoptive family. We were very different. We were the same race, so I didn't have the piece of having to fit in racially in an area where I was a minority. However, my adoptive parents were older, silent generation folks born in the 1920s. They were very pragmatic and they insisted on order. And I was very artistic from a young age. And I had flights of fancy, I had daydreams, I had trouble, still have trouble having habits and routine. And so I was not, we butted heads. And then when I was only 5 years old, my adoptive mother had a nervous breakdown. And so she was institutionalized for 3 years. Sorry. it's probably a squirrel. So she was institutionalized from the time I was 5 to when I was 8, almost 9. And so I had no maternal connection. So during that time, I daydreamed about my birth mother a lot. You know, I really felt like, I think it was that made me have this lifelong longing to know who she was. Then finally my mom came back to us, but she had changed. She was, yeah, they did the horrible things they did to people back then. She had electroshock therapy and all this stuff. And so she came back and she was a different person, and she was reproachful and she was mean, basically, and didn't treat me with love. And so her meanness and her terrible words stripped away my already thin self-esteem. And I became a very timid person. I was bullied, and my uniqueness became kind of like an anchor to me. It created a feeling of otherness. I was isolated, I was insecure, and I didn't seem to fit in anywhere. And I know now that a lot of that was, you know, a lack of confidence. But back then I just really, I just felt alone all the time. But thankfully, as a young adult, I did find love. As you heard, I was married, I had a family, but still there was that void inside of me. And really only a connection to my biological past could fill that void. And I really needed to know my own story. But as you guys probably are aware of, depending on where you live, it was decades before I got a chance to really find out about who I was in that way. But finally in 2011, they opened the adoption records. And although it was a difficult decision to search, both my adoptive parents had already passed on at that point. So I didn't have that piece of having to balance the two families. And I did end up asking for my records. And then in July of 2012, I finally got my birth certificate. So here I am. I received my long-awaited truth, and it had my mother's name on it. And so knowing my mother's birth name actually led to the biggest surprise of my life, because I sat down at my computer and I Googled her name. And, you know, I expected it to be the first step in a lengthy process, you know, months or years. Sometimes people search, right? Well, for me, those 2 seconds were all I needed, because the first thing I clicked on was a Wikipedia page about Karen Black, a Hollywood actress. Now, her photo didn't look much like me. And at the time, I'm like, oh, right. What's the chances that my mom's famous? But when I read over the details, I realized that she was the right age and she grew up in the Chicago area like I did. And when I started looking for images of her at a younger age, I found out that she and I looked a lot alike. I'm going to show you a picture if I do it right. So here's me, and here's Karen. I found this screenshot of her. And when I saw this picture, I thought, wow, this lady is really my mother. So I started looking into who she was. Hold on. And I found out that she had worked with a lot of famous people. This is her with Jack Nicholson in 5 Easy Pieces. They both won an Academy Award nomination for that. There were many articles about her. She was in a lot of things, like Nashville. I had actually watched her. Hold on. I had actually watched her in the movie theater in The Great Gatsby, and there were other things that I found, and it was pretty amazing. So, so then, you know, I'm wondering how the heck to get a hold of her, right? And I called my husband and told him what I'd found. And he said, well, she's probably on Facebook, right? Sure enough, I found her and I messaged her. I sent her a candid message on a private message, and I told her my story and my birth date. And I just said, I just want to know if you're my mother. And then I waited nervously for her to reply. And on August 8th, 2012, I received her answer. And it was the best thing I ever read. She said simply, I am your mother. Giving you up was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And she accepted me back into her life without hesitation. And we had a great reunion several weeks later at her Los Angeles home. She even connected me with my birth father, and he also had a really good career, though behind the scenes, he was Dean of Cal Arts for many years. He was president of Ted Danson's film company, and he's won 3 Emmys and a Peabody Award. His name is Robert Benedetti. He's called Benny, and he's awesome. He's a great guy. He and his whole family accepted me as graciously as Karen did. And I've been able to spend time with all my new family members, siblings, nieces and nephews on both sides. I've met cousins in Wisconsin, in Florida, even in Italy. And all my reunion experiences have been positive. I mean, almost fairy tale good, with one exception. And that is that a few weeks after we first connected, Karen shared with me the tragic news that she was fighting cancer. And so during the time we had together, I was able to spend a week with her in September. And then in that next February, her husband, Stephen, called and asked me to come out and help with her. She was bedridden at that time. And she had a procedure, and he was very busy with work. And so I actually was out there for 3 weeks helping with my mother and just being a real daughter to her, you know? And it was, I mean, even though it was tragic circumstances, it was very healing to be able to help her in that way and to be there for her. And then I also saw her again in June, when she was in a nursing home, and had some sweet time with her then. And on August 8th, 2012, she passed away. We had, it gets me all the time, we had exactly 1 calendar year together to the day. And it was a life-changing experience for me in every way. I had spent 50 years yearning for her, and we had 1 year together, and we both got the emotional healing we needed from that 1 year. Finding my roots was the best thing that ever happened to me.
So that, you know, that's just amazing, the way that the events took place and how quickly you were able to find her, and just in the nick of time that you did have that special 1 year together. And now you have this whole other family, correct?
Right. Correct.
You're in a relationship with, and you see them on a regular basis?
I do. We see them and talk with them a lot. I have some more pictures I will share now. Okay, so we did this one. So this is me the day that we met, me and Karen. And we had we just clicked right away. And these are my siblings on her side. That's Hunter Carson, her other biological child. And then the other girl is named Celine, and she was actually adopted. She adopted Celine when she married her husband, Stephen Eckleberry, because she was too old at that point to have children. So that was a twist for sure. This is me and my dad. And my eyes favor his side of the family. In fact, my brother Ben and I have like the same eyes. It's pretty cool. And these are my siblings on his side of the family. That's Ben and Nina. And on the other side is Kirsten, my stepsister. And we just spent a week down in Houston with Hunter and his wife and 3 young daughters, and got to know them better than ever. And it's just great.
That's wonderful. So tell us now, I know you're writing a book.
Yes.
You want to tell everybody about that and when you started it and why and how that came to be?
Sure. It's a memoir, and I started it the year after I met Karen. I was sitting at her house, just putting some notes in my journal, writing them, longhand. And at that point, there was this new rule in schools where they weren't teaching cursive anymore. I know since then they've started to do it again, but I was like, geez, my grandchildren won't even be able to read this, So I started typing it, and I've never been good at typing until now. But after 75,000 words, you get better. But that's how I started doing it, and I just started keeping track of what was going on, and it grew from there. But I'll tell you, if I'd known in the beginning what I was getting into, I would have run screaming, because as some of you know, it's not easy. It's been a big, long journey, but it's been powerful in my life too. Writing really helps you work through things.
So is the manuscript complete?
The manuscript is complete, but it's in editing right now. I have a great editor, and she's trying to get me to express more of the emotional side of things. And that's hard. It's always been hard for me, and that's one thing writing has helped with, is to be able to get those things out, because they just sit there, I guess. So I do have a couple of excerpts. If you guys are wanting to hear it, I'd love to read it to you.
Would you like to share that with us? That would be great.
All right. So they're related excerpts. The first one is from the spring of 1969, actually, when I was 10 years old. My adoptive mom had been back from her 3 years in mental health wards, and like I said, she was really mean to me most of the time. So here it is. On a cool sunlit day, I knelt in jeans and bare feet, weeding my garden at the side of the house. Sitting back on the warm flagstones, I watered my young plants with our hose, pressing my thumb to the end to make a spray, watching the rainbow appear in the sunlight. I took a cool drink, the refreshing taste of hose water quenching my thirst, droplets wetting my face, dripping on my tie-dye t-shirt. When I'd asked if I could grow my own flowers, my dad had bought me zinnia seeds. I nurtured them, and now the first flower buds were appearing. Gardening satisfied me in the same way that drawing did, creating breathing space in my mind, allowing inner freedom to emerge. I was finding seeds of my true self, but I had no native soil to plant them in. Closed adoption had kept me from the context of kin I needed to nourish my budding identity. My dad came out to empty the trash, and on his way back from the alley, he stopped to watch me. "Your garden looks nice, Diane." "Thanks, Dad." I looked up at him, shielding my eyes from the sun. He was a big man. His old work cap sat on his bald head. His beads of sweat trickled down his temples. Under his gray work shirt, I could see his ever-present pocket protector and pens. He had on slacks and dress shoes, and I realized that my father didn't even own a pair of jeans. He did all the work around our house dressed like this. He tried so hard. I stood up and I wrapped my slender arms around his great girth. "I love you, Dad," I said, and I held his gaze. "I love you too, honey." "Mom's been mean to me," I ventured. "She bosses me around and never listens." I searched his face, hoping he would advocate for me, but he looked at the ground. Your mom's sick. She's doing her best. We have to give her the benefit of the doubt. He shook his head and walked away. His shoulders slumped like my heart. Maybe he felt trapped too, wishing Mom was back to normal, but unable to help her change. I looked toward the backyard, fighting off my tears, and saw that the crabapple tree had bloomed. The bright blossoms cheered me up, and I trotted back toward the alley, wiping my eyes. I touched the smooth bark and gazed upward, climbing to my favorite spot in the branches, a dozen feet in the air. The bloom's fragrance was intoxicating here. I picked a small sprig and held the pink petals to my nose. In the midst of my sadness, a familiar sweetness filled me, a blend of peace and strangely soothing emptiness. I had just learned the word melancholy. I knew it meant sad, but also had something to do with beauty. So I chose that word to describe this mysterious, warm longing that became a persistent part of my personality, a comfort in quiet moments. Nearly half a century would pass before I know the source of this poignant melancholy. And then the second one is during the year of our reunion. It was the fall of 2012, the month after I'd finally met my birth mother, and I didn't hear from her for a while. And that was hard for me, but then I found out that she was hospitalized with pneumonia on top of her cancer. My brother's reassurance didn't take away the heaviness I felt. I had lived half a century without my mother, and the thought of losing her so soon was unbearable. I was having trouble standing straight, like gravity had doubled my weight. I finally internalized that she was fighting for her life. Her frailty, the sag in her shoulders and unsteady gait all came back to me, how she pushed herself to spend time with me. A deep thankfulness blended with my new dread. During this time, while my heart was heavy, something unexpected happened. One early night, Rich called me over to his computer desk in the kitchen. He was on Facebook, and he wanted to show me something Stephen had posted. Stephen is Karen's husband. It's your mom singing, Rich said. I stood behind him to watch the video. Karen was dressed up in a plum sweater, sitting at a piano in a festive living room next to a woman I hadn't met. The ambient sounds of a party surrounded them. My first thoughts were, she looks so well. When was this? Later, I found out that it was her 2012 Academy Award party. The woman next to her at the piano was her friend Azalea Snail. They were smiling, heartily belting out a rendition of the Gershwin song, Summertime. My heart seemed to forget how to beat as I heard her exuberant voice singing the lyrics addressed to a child. One of these mornings, you're going to rise up singing, and you'll spread your wings and you'll take to the sky. But till that morning, there ain't nothing can harm you with Daddy and Mammy standing by. I stood there stunned. Sudden, powerful emotions filled my chest and tears poured from my eyes. Was she thinking of me as she sang, remembering the baby she named Nina? Rich wasn't sure how to react to me. You okay, Di? He said. Yeah, I don't know, maybe not. I need a minute, I said, and retreated into our bedroom when the video was over. Switching on the lampstand light, I sat heavily on the bed and I sobbed. When the tears subsided, I wiped my eyes and wrote in my journal to try and make sense of my perplexing reaction. Today, I heard my birth mother sing, really sing. Her voice did something to my heart I want to understand. A dark, locked place inside me broke open. Out poured feelings of sorrow, of abandonment, and I've never felt abandoned since the earliest time I can remember. The trauma was hidden deep inside, and the reason it came out was because here was my mother, so alive and on fire in her soul, and I did not grow up with this light in my life. I was like an ember kept burning only from within when I could have nestled close to her and become a flame. We are so much alike. I have never had anyone at all who truly understood me, and here she is, myself mirrored, and she denied me this most precious relationship. Maybe it's even a stirring of memory from when Karen was carrying me. She told me she sang to me back then. I could be reliving the internal struggle of a newborn being torn from my mother. This makes sense with the depth of emotion and I feel, and with the abandonment coming to the surface. Some of the emotion is positive too, more like a fire burning in my soul, like something has been rekindled. I hope and pray for more time with my birth mom. The next day, I texted Karen about hearing the song. I told her that listening to her sing did something deep in my heart I didn't yet understand, as if a long buried place was awakened. And she replied, "Oh my, it's like the freedom in your soul can be likened to mine." Her response touched me, and I didn't mention the rest. She didn't need to read it in a text anyway. Instead, I expressed it myself in a poem, and thoughts began to pour into my journal. What might I have gone through as a lonely infant? If I had felt abandoned, how did I make it through 9 weeks living in a sterile adoption agency? Did I have a kind nurse, maybe? Maybe she was the same woman who let Karen see me in the nursery. How did I adjust to a brand new life afterward? As I wrestled with all these questions, emotions roiled. One day, while I wrote, a truth surfaced about something that had puzzled me since childhood. In my mind, I was back in my crabapple tree in the backyard, enjoying the tiny pink blossoms in spring and sour red fruit in summer. Again, I felt the peace and sadness that I had called my melancholy, a unique dual emotion that didn't have a true name, a mingling of emptiness and wholeness and serenity. There was something inexpressibly wonderful about it. Through the years, at quiet times alone, I would sit still and let it draw me inward to a cozy space in my heart. My pen paused above the page as I realized, and tears came. I knew what the melancholy was, why I had cherished this place inside me that felt safe but sad. It was all I had left of my real mother. It was a warm natal recollection of Karen from within her womb, wrapped in the trauma of adoption. I had found her in my own heart. She'd been with me all my life.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful, Diane. Thank you.
Sorry.
It's okay. We're here with you. It's all right. And we're so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
But what a blessing to have that special time with her.
Absolutely.
And yeah, we're all anxious to see your book get published and hear the entire story. I'd like to open it up to questions right now. I'm sure several of you have questions at this time. Go ahead and raise your hand or take yourself off mute if you have a question for Diane.
Hi, Diane. I'm Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
Okay, I wondered what became of your adopted mom. Is she still living?
No, she actually passed away in 2001. So I didn't have to deal with her reaction to finding Karen, but knowing her, she would not have been happy about it at all. So it was a real blessing, actually, that she wasn't still alive. She wouldn't have liked to share me.
I know you're special. I'm sure she wouldn't want to. And your dad, he passed away also?
He did. He also had been gone, but he would have been happy for me. And he and my birth father would have got along really well. They're both similar type of souls.
Your words were wonderful. I really enjoyed them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, who's next?
Hi, Diane. I have a question for you. Thank you for sharing your story.
Sure.
I'm wondering, had Karen looked for you? And is that a question that you asked her maybe in the beginning?
Yes, and the answer is yes. Actually, what happened was that spring, when I first found out that I could try and get my birth certificate, she had asked her brother Peter, who was a genealogist, to help her find me. And she had also, that April, finally told Hunter and Celine about me. They hadn't known about me all their lives until just, a few months before I actually connected. Peter wasn't able to find out about me. It's really hard from a parent's point of view to find the children. So, but yeah, she had just started to look. That
Was
didn't
she
mean a lot.
surprised? Was she surprised or shocked or just excited or?
She seemed really excited. She was really choked up one day when I was out there and Hunter was there, and she and Hunter had also been apart for many years, and that's another whole story. And so he was back in her life and I was back in her life. And so she was just sitting there with the three of us, in tears going, I never thought that this would happen. All three of my children in one room together with me.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for asking, Beth.
I have a question about your adopted sibling.
Okay, who's talking to me?
My name's Linda.
Hey, Linda.
Hey, sorry, I could turn my video on.
No, I see you down there. There's a lot of different people to look for here.
And I'm just curious, did you guys talk about like your mom adopting after you had been adopted and any feelings you might have around that?
Sure. Yeah. Yes, we did talk about that. She said that it was an easy thing for her to do because she and Stephen really wanted to have a child and she couldn't. And she didn't know what to do. And Stephen just said, well, let's adopt. And she was like, yeah, okay, we can do that, and they actually, Celine's adoption was a very open adoption. They chose the mom and Karen helped deliver Celine. So there was none of that trauma that many of us had experienced where we were alone in some crib for months, She was there right in the very beginning with Celine and felt that was very important. And Celine has always had a relationship with her birth mother. And I think that's the way to do it. I really do.
And how do you feel about it being on a different side of the coin?
I was kind of interested in it. I didn't feel I wasn't like, I don't know, I didn't feel bad in any way about it. Celine, the funny thing is Celine is actually much younger. She is the same age as my youngest child. So my mom and me were raising babies at the same time, across the country from each other. We didn't know it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, Sharon Cummins, would you like to make a comment? I saw you typed it out in the chat room. Would you like to say hello? Or?
I did. I was just so proud of Diane because it's obvious that it's still such an emotional journey, even though it's been this many years since she, went through this. She still gets so emotional, and that just shows that she chose to bear the truth, even though it hurts to read it, and it'll probably always hurt to read that. There's certain letters and things that I read that I still get emotional on, even though it's been many, many years. So I'm just so proud of her to actually put this in words.
Thank you. It means a lot.
Something else too, when you're writing, and I'm sure that you found this to be true, Diane, is that as you're writing, these emotions do come up. Mm-hmm. So the writing starts to stall a little bit as you're starting to process what it is that you're writing.
Very true.
You have something to say about that?
Sure. I got, within 2 years, my whole story was written out up until the time that I went to help Karen in February. And then I just stopped writing. It was 2 more years before I was able to pick it back up again. I just couldn't get past that and get it all out. So yeah, that was hard. And at that point, there was a point where I said, okay, am I going to do this or not? You know, or do I just abandon it? I could just abandon it and go on, because I'm an artist, you know, and I've grown as an artist a lot. One of the hugest things that happened from finding them is that my birth parents are both artists. And so I was really encouraged, and they just really both, that, you know, their acceptance and their love, and they just wanted me to go on and do these things with my art. So at that point I was like, okay, I can just put my energy into my art and have the story in my heart, or I go ahead and finish this and get through it, you know. And I chose to get through it. I still don't know if it was the right thing to do, but there it is, I'm done. And now I'm at the point of just, I can't read it out loud and not get emotional like I just did, but I can edit it on the page and think through it with, you know, and get from page to page and get it out there. So I think I'm really gonna get it done and get it published.
Jen, did you have a question?
Yeah. Now, Diane, you had talked about, you know, listening to your mother singing. Now I know her from film, so I don't know. Did she have a music career in addition to that? Do you have the musical ability as well, or?
No, it skipped me and it skipped Hunter too. We can't do it, but maybe one of his kids or our grandkids. I don't know. She did not have a music career, but she did record many songs, and there's this little EP coming out. I think, how many songs on it, Rich? 11? 17 songs that were, most of which she wrote and recorded herself.
Some short.
And yeah, some of them are pretty short, but she had that ability, and she had the love of music. And that's just coming out today, by the way. This her new LP called Dreaming of You, I think. Is that right? Dreaming of You. It just came out today. Just dropped.
And I just posted that link. I found it on Rolling Stone. So I just posted that link. Everybody can go check that out, because I've never heard her sing. So I think that's really neat. I'll check that one out.
Okay.
Okay, we have a question from one of our Zoom users. Have you personally done any acting, and what other artistic interests do you have?
The funny about the acting thing, I didn't pursue it as a child. My adoptive parents were very pragmatic, and my dad pushed me to go into math and science, and, you know, he saw my art as kind of a fanciful thing, but not something you would do it for a career, you know. So drama classes were out of the question. I mean, I barely was able to take 2 art classes in high school, you know, being in, they put you in these tracts, right? So, but when I did do acting in classes, people would come up to me afterwards and they'd go, wow, I was really scared. You were really good, you know, and so I knew there was something there, but it was never my thing. I'm a visual artist. I'm an oil painter, done a lot of other different media, and that's my love. So,
Great,
but
thank you.
I did try during that 1 year, I did try out for a play just to see what it was like. That was fun.
Okay, Amy, you're next.
Hi, Diane. Thanks
Hi.
so much for sharing. I teared up when you were reading and you were tearing up. It really, I've been having this weird recurring dream, which I think speaks to what you were saying, which is that there's like a part of my house that I didn't know existed, and I'm discovering it.
Mhm.
And I think it has a lot to do with, this part of myself that I've kind of walled off in a way. But I did have a question for you. You said that your adoptive parents had passed, and so you didn't have that juggling, so to speak.
Yeah.
Were there other family members that you shared your other adoptive family members that you shared the discovery with, and how did that go?
Well, yes, I have one sister, but she's mentally challenged. So I did share with her, and she was there for my journey, but she was not unhappy. She was not happy. She was just, for example, when I got back from the first week of being with Karen, she met me at the door, and she was just so thrilled to see me. And all she kept telling me was about how she hurt herself and how much she missed me. And so the awareness just isn't there. So, but I mean, I had a couple of cousins, and of course my husband and his whole side of the family, and he has siblings, and they were all rooting for me. And, I have sons. I had 2 grandchildren at that point too. So yeah, there's that. One of my sons is really into it. He's already ordered Karen's LP, and he just loves it.
I'm wondering about your birth father. Was he aware of you? And what about, well, I guess we need the answer first to that one. Did he know about you, that you'd been born?
Yes. He and my
Okay,
mom.
go ahead.
Sure. He and my mom were together for 3 years. And when she found out she was pregnant, he asked her to marry him. And she said no. She said, no, I want a career. And so, it was her decision to put me up for adoption. And that hurt, I had to kind of work through that a bit, because she was just, right from the very beginning, when she found out about me, she was like, well, I don't want this child. But he was very supportive of her. She stayed at one of those maternity homes, she never told her parents. She said she was in New York and wrote fictitious letters and everything, which he had a friend who'd drive him back out to New York where he lived and send him. And, there was the whole scheme of it. But they named me Nina together. And, but for some reason, his name was not on my birth certificate, which I'm interested in what Peter was saying, because I know he would be for putting his name on my certificate, I'll bet. But he was just really thrilled to find out about me, and they had kept in touch over the years.
Mm-hmm. Had he told his children?
Yep, his kids knew about me since the time they were teenagers, and so every year, like at Christmas, they'd go, "Oh, I wonder what she's doing," So when they found out about me, they were all over it, messaging me and everything.
Well, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, Alicia, you want to take yourself off mute and ask your question?
Sure. Hi, Diane. I've enjoyed listening to your story. Thank you so much. I'm curious in knowing why if you're on purpose calling your mother by her first name and not calling her mom.
At first, I called her Karen, but by the time February rolled around, she was mom. And in the end, in the nursing home, she was mommy. And so yeah, that relationship grew. But now she's Karen again. I say my mom, and with Hunter, we say mom, but mostly I think of her as Karen.
Thank you. Your story is so inspirational.
Thank you.
Okay, we have any more questions? Peter?
I'm not very good at questions, as you know. I'm good at taking questions. Yeah, hang on. I've got a granddaughter just coming. Please, Alexis, can you come back in a minute? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yep. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, since my name was mentioned, I'm guessing your father is Italian.
Yes.
So we share that. We both have Italian fathers, and
Okay.
I've been back to Italy too, and I have wonderful relations with my Italian relatives and two surviving aunts, one in Italy and one here in Sydney. I've got to say, and I want you to take this the right way, and your mother has been an inspiration in my life.
Oh,
I first watched a movie, Easy Rider, so,
right.
and yeah, I experienced my first LSD trip through your mother's eyes, and I even went back to a few years ago. I went to New Orleans, and I visited that cemetery where that was filmed, which was a moment for me. And I also watched her. Another movie was she was with Gene Wilder with in a quirky movie called Rhinoceros.
I have not seen Rhinoceros.
Look, you either love it or you hate it. I just loved it because it was. I think it's a stage play, really, and I just saw a human side of her in that. And in one point, she used the term "pissy poo." And I thought that was a window into her personality. And I'm hoping that's right. I was very relieved to hear you had a good reunion with her because, yeah, I had such a high opinion of her. So
Thanks.
I'm getting photo bombed here.
Yeah, so cute.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think your story's wonderful. I hope you're not putting me off writing a book. One day I would like to put a memoir down. Yeah, I'm a late discovery adoptee, so I'm into this 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'm sure all of you have some really interesting stories to share. I went to Italy too, and we met cousins over in Italy. My eldest son took me there a couple years ago, just before COVID actually, and met cousins and had a great time. I'm from Tuscany. So what part of Italy are you from?
Calabria. And a lot of my friends would go, of course, from Calabria. But yeah, I loved Italy. We drove right around Italy from the top to the bottom, including Sicily and back around the other side. And before the pandemic, I was just about to book tickets to Italy, and my wife was urging me to book the tickets. I went, hang on, this COVID thing, I think we might just hold off a minute, and
Smart.
I did. So I was fortunate, and but yeah, definitely intending to go back again and again.
Thanks, Peter. And granddaughter.
I'll plug my computer in.
Okay. More questions, anyone? I know, Diane, you mentioned to me about going back to your art, how your relationship with your mom, how that encouraged you and helped you.
Yeah.
As opposed to your adoptive parents didn't quite see the value in any of that. And that was, it was able for you, you were able to blossom and grow and expand your artistic abilities. because
Yeah.
she encouraged you.
Yes.
Now, did she know, did you start to write the book while she was still living, or have the idea, or did you talk about it at all?
I never talked about it with her, so I don't know. It hadn't occurred to me to make it into a book at that point. I was thinking I was writing maybe an article or something, you know. One of the things that did happen was that right at the very beginning, she and her husband made it clear to me that they didn't want me to go public with the information. She wanted it to be a secret still, even though she was, you know, so old at that point, and it wouldn't have hurt her career or whatever, I don't think. But anyway, so because of that, because everything was hush hush, I didn't even ask her about writing a book, you know, because she didn't want me to talk about it. So it wasn't until probably 2 months before she died that she finally decided to tell people about it. But at that point, it was too late. You know, People magazine wasn't really interested, and she was, I mean, she was on her deathbed, you know, there wasn't much left of her. It was really sad. So you know, that was hard to work through because I felt like that I really missed an opportunity to enjoy something, to really have, you know, heck, we could add an article in People magazine, you know, or something that would, you know, I could have been doing podcasts at the time even, who knows, but it didn't happen. So, what can you do?
Okay, Diana, did you have a question?
I saw her hand.
Diana.
Yes, you need to unmute. Oh, there you go.
First of all, Diane, thanks for sharing your story. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It was really beautiful. How old was your mom when she had you? May I ask?
She was 19.
The same age as my mother. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've known a long time. What year did you find? How old were you when you found out, if I may ask?
When I found out that I was adopted?
Yes.
My father sat me down when I was 4 years old and told me. Of course, I didn't know what he was talking about, but you know, we were about to go adopt my sister, and so he sat me down and he said we were going to get, you know, I was going to get a sister, and we were going to go downtown and pick her up. We were adopting her, and they adopted me too. And so he kind of explained what it was about. And in my little mind, I'm like, oh, so he, you know, he said something like, so the stork brought you to your mom, but she couldn't keep you, so she sent the stork to our house, you know, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Alicia has another question. She's asking, do you think she was ashamed? Do you think of her early pregnancy? Did she ever explain why you could not go public?
I don't know if she ever explained it, but I think I understand it. She was not ashamed of the pregnancy, but for some reason, she's, even to this day, if you look her up in certain places, they'll say that she was born later than she was. She wanted people to think she was younger. Because when she first started, when she first made it to Hollywood, she was like 30. She was old already, but nobody knew she was that old because she looked so very, very young. So she built this career on kind of this fib that she was younger than she really was. So if she would have said something and people would have done the math and figured out that, oh, she's 10 years older than we ever thought she was, you know. So I think there was a little bit of vanity there. You know, I really do, unfortunately. But I mean, it never came out in any way that hurt my relationship with her. We always had a great time together, and she was always forthcoming with a lot of information.
Makes sense. That's a similarity that I had. My mother had shame, a little bit different situation than yours, of course, but it seemed like the shame factor was a big deal. And my mother is in her 80s. She's still living. So, but yeah, it seems that, you know, that era, their culture had more shame toward pregnancies of that nature, you know.
Well, right. I mean, she couldn't possibly think about having a career and having a child. It was like in her mind, it was black and white. You have a child, you get married, you're a secretary, or you give your child up for adoption and you can have the career you want. You know, now there's not that duality to it. You can do both. But back then it was not even, there was no chance for her. So
yeah, she made that choice too, though. You know, she didn't get married to your father.
Right.
So she went that other direction.
She did. And she had a great life for herself too. I mean, it took me a while, but I don't grudge her. I don't grudge it to her because I had a good life. You know, I mean, as we all know, there's downsides to being adopted, but it wasn't all bad. I was well cared for. You know, we weren't rich by any means, but I had enough. I didn't go hungry, you know.
Yeah. By the way, I have family in Paducah, Kentucky. I just had to tell you that. Yeah, my birth certificate father was from Princeton, Caldwell County.
Okay.
Yeah. And stepbrothers in Fredonia.
Okay.
You're
right.
familiar.
Cool.
Thank you. Thanks again.
Sure.
Linda, you're up next.
You need to unmute.
Right.
There you go. There you go.
So I wasted a lot of time trying to get on here tonight, but I finally made it. So I guess I didn't hear the beginning, but
okay.
It was tender and from your heart and well understood. Your emotions were coming through so well. I can't understand how the editor would say you have to bring it out more of your emotions, or maybe what you spoke tonight came from that. I don't know.
That passage that I read, the second passage that I read, her comment on that passage was, "This is what I'm talking about. Make more of it like this." Yeah, so that's why I chose it, because I knew she liked it. So,
all right. So what I was wondering was, so in this period, this maybe past 20 years, a lot of, especially since Cub was founded and birth mothers started coming out and actresses were having babies and adopting babies and whatever, a lot of books are written, and a lot of books are written by birth mothers and by adoptees. Did she ever share with you that she, you know, even though she didn't look, she never found you, that she watched television all the time when she saw these movies about adoption, that she read the books, any of the books that were out there by either adoptees or birth parents?
no, she didn't seem like she was interested in that. I mean, it was her own story, yes, but she was the type of person who lived in the moment. So she would get inspired and she would have ideas, and she would get different jobs, and she would throw herself into her acting or whatever thing was happening at the moment. She was great at having parties. Like one of her friends told me that she would call her up like on Wednesday night, "Hey, I want to have a few friends over on Friday night. You come in," and she'd show up and there'd be 150 people there, and Karen's whole kitchen would have exploded because she made all this food. And so she just wasn't a person. I don't think she was a person who wanted to think through those things that had happened before. She wanted to live now, today. with the people that she loved and doing the things she loved. So yeah, it was, you know, that's just the type of person she was, but I wish she would have, but it didn't happen.
Thank you.
Sure.
And if I may, Linda, I'm
Yes.
dropping the link to our YouTube channel in the chat right now. By tomorrow, the replay of this will be out there, so you can catch the beginning of it.
Oh, thank you. All right.
Linda, it's good to see you here this evening too.
I'm sorry.
It's good to see you here this evening.
Oh, thank you. It's good to see you in person too. I guess it's been a long time since we've connected.
Yes, it has. So it's good to see you.
I know what I did. I actually tried to get into the other two that were this week, and same time I had problem. I couldn't do it. I think my Zoom is a little different, but tonight I added something that they recommended, and then it went. I don't know. Good that you're doing. This is a nice thing to do in this format, I think.
It's very relaxed. We've been doing this well over a year now. So
Really, this is the first emails I've gotten about it. Whatever came out from, and I'm at Eventbrite. That's where well, you have to be, I guess. To get it. So I don't know why I never saw it before this week.
well, feel free to reach out to Jennifer or myself if you need help getting on in the future. Okay.
I wrote to someone. It said that whoever sponsored this, I did write.
Was it you, Jen?
I don't know who it was. Who? Someone answered me. Oh, I'm sorry you couldn't get on. I don't know who it was.
That was me.
Oh, oh, Jenna, yes.
I'm glad you made it tonight.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Anybody have any additional questions for Diane? Got a couple of comments here. Let's see here.
Thanks, Barbara.
So when are you ready to send that book off to an agent? You got your query letter ready?
I have some written.
Okay. Oh.
You're not going to self-publish?
Anybody knows a publicist, that's what we need, someone to publish the book.
That's my husband. I may end up self-publishing. I think I'm going to give it a few more months. I'm just about done with my edits, giving it back to her, and she's going to do the copy edit thing. And then at that point, I think I'll start querying. I'll give it a little bit of a time.
Yeah, well, you're right. It's beautiful. I'm looking forward to the book as well. So
thank you.
Okay. Nobody we have any last minute questions? We've got a little bit of time left.
I have another question.
Sure, Linda, go ahead.
So Diane, in reunion with your siblings, with your first mother and your first father, do you ever feel like when they're talking, how do you handle when they're talking about the period of time when you weren't there?
I don't. Okay, I think I know what you're talking about. I went through a while, especially with my birth father, because he and his family, he's been together with his wife now since 66, I think. And so they had a really cool childhood. Like they went camping, they went around the country in a VW bus, and there's a lot of things that I really missed out on. And that, it's kind of a, you wish if only this or that, what it could have been. And yeah, but I don't take it too hard though, because he's just been so great. I mean, I know a lot of people don't find the capacity for acceptance in their birth parents that I found. And so I have to be really thankful for what I do have.
Yes. Well, I admire how you I just admire you and how you're moving through it. And truly an inspiration, and wish you all the best.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay, Tina Brown. How you doing tonight?
Hi, Diane. Thank you so much for sharing and reading. I loved you reading to us. That just was really special. I'm wondering about your relationship with your sister that was adopted, because it sounds like was pretty young when you both lost your mom, and also if your siblings, if everyone knows about the book and how they feel about that.
Okay. I don't think Celine knows about the book. Celine's kind of dropped off the planet. She has continued to have a really difficult time with my mother's death. They were very close.
Yeah.
And so she has not, now during the time that I was there, she was fine. I mean, we had a civil relationship. There were no problems. We talked and stuff, but she's my kid's age. She's as young as my youngest son. And so there's not a lot to have a relationship about. And she has never tried to have a relationship with me. And she doesn't really even have a relationship with Hunter at this point either. So, you know, she's not really in the picture. I don't know how she would feel about the book. She is in the book, but only a little bit. And if she ever ends up reading it or whatever, I hope she doesn't have any problems. I don't say anything bad about her. Yeah, I don't really have anything bad to say. I just don't know her. So we'll see. But Hunter's happy for me. He's read through it. My other siblings are happy for me. Everybody's doing things. I have a sister who's a teacher. I have a sister who's a therapist. I have a brother both my brothers are into filmmaking. You know, everybody's just really busy with their lives and really embracing their gifts. And I'm one of them, and I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
We have another question from a Zoom user, Diane. Have you thought about building your extended family tree?
Oh, yeah. I am really into genealogy. I love it. I love it. Now, I'll tell you that even if Karen had never got back to me and I had no relationship with my families at all, it would still have been great for me to find out who my parents were, my mother anyway, because my Uncle Peter Ziegler, Karen's brother, is a genealogist. And in the 80s, he spent time in the real world, traveling to different cities and different record places and libraries. And he compiled our family genealogy back into the 1700s. So I know a lot. I went on Ancestry.com before Karen ever got back to me, and I saw her and my grandparents and my great-grandparents, and I know. And I think DNA is wonderful. I think genealogy is wonderful. It just shows you how you fit in your whole life. You're just this island. Like, here's humanity on a big continent, and here's you, this little island speck over here, right? But then all of a sudden you see where you actually fit in, where you came from, the homelands, like Italy. Like, me and Peter have been to our homelands. It's awesome, right? Right. So it's phenomenal. And yes, I have a huge family tree.
Okay, you've got a lot of nice comments this evening, Diane, which you'll be receiving a copy of the chat room so you can read those.
Thank you.
Several people have commented they can't wait till your book comes out. Paige even mentioned that she can't wait to not only read it, but review it. For those of you that don't know, Paige Strickland, and she just stepped away, but Paige Strickland does our book reviews for NAAP. So if you want your book reviewed, let us know as well. We're happy to do that.
Love it.
Anybody else have a last question before we have closing comments and talk about next week's guest. Last call. Okay.
Well, I'd just like to thank everybody. It was really great to be here. And it's just good to know that all of you have stories too, you know, and you can relate to how I'm feeling because you've had these same experiences to you know, to much of a degree. And I really appreciate your caring about my story. Thank you.
Well, you're welcome. We enjoyed having you on this evening. Yeah, I always say that I think our voices are one of the most valuable assets that we own. We each have our own stories and we have to share those. It's just important that we do. So I think Jen's starting to fill some things up in the chat bar with some upcoming, oh, that's about our conference coming up again. We talk about that every week. It's September 9th, 10th, and 11th in Indianapolis. The in-person tickets, however, are sold out, but we are doing a hybrid this year. So if you didn't get a ticket, you can purchase one and you can watch it live, or if you can't even do that, you can watch it at your convenience because it's going to be recorded. So you're going to hear a lot more about that in the upcoming weeks. But thanks, Jen, for sharing that. And again, Diane, we just loved having you this evening, and we wish you all the best and keep us appraised of how your book's going and let us know. With that, I think Jen's got a closing. Let's talk about next week's guest. Okay, now this is going to be fun, guys. What we decided to do, we're going to start having a guest host occasionally. So you don't have to see my face start out all the time. How about somebody else for a while? So Suzanne Bachner and her husband, Bob Rader, have decided that they're going to be our first guest host for next week. So they'll be opening our happy hour, and their guest, Evie Yeager, who is a trauma expert with traumaroot.com. So we're really excited about next week and how that will unfold. And we've got some surprises in store for you. So we hope you'll mark your calendars and join us again next Friday. Jen, you have anything else?
No, just appreciate everybody coming. And please, if you are struggling to get in, message me. You can email me, jen@naapunited.org. I know Zoom is constantly changing things, so we don't want you to miss out. And then don't forget, you can always watch replays for episodes when you just can't be here. They're available on our YouTube channel. Like I said, we appreciate you all being here.
Thank you. Yes, and for those of you who don't know, if you haven't joined us over on Facebook on our Adoption Happy Hour Facebook group, please join us over there. We can always continue conversations, and we have little news and tips and of things that are coming up. So please join us. Okay, Louise has a question about the date. Yeah, next week's date is, next Friday is the 23rd, right? Yes, they will be on, Bob and Suzanne with Evie Yeager will be on Friday the 23rd. Okay, that's it for me. Everybody have a great week.
Thank you so much.
Peter, we'll see you in a couple hours.
We certainly will. Looking forward to it.
All right, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.
You too, Marcie. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Good to meet you, Diane.
Yeah, you too. And good to meet you finally, Beth.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone.
Okay.
Hey,
Yes,
Marcie.
Diane, great.